Epic swell, Kyrin. Epic swell.
Woo!
That is my motto for episode 73. Mere mortals.
Meanderings.
Meanderings.
And I'm going to kick us off with a little story. Why are we looking so fantastic today? Why? I mean, we always look fantastic, but especially fantastic today because we're recording in daylight because I messed up yesterday and I forgot the cameras. So that's why we're doing it today. Getting fresh. This is fresh. This will be released, 2 hours, 3 hours after actually doing it?
Quick turnaround. Normally we do our, this particular episode that comes out today, essentially the day prior. It's normally at nighttime.
Yep.
We both were just lemons. Straight lemons, stuffed it up. It's fine. It's going to come out. You're going to listen. It's still going to be pleasurable. It's still going to be great.
Exactly.
I want to hear some interesting things from you, just some crazy stuff. But I want to start us off with Mr. Goo. Do you know about Mr. Goo?
No.
Okay. In the news lately, this guy, and I can't actually figure out if it's illegal or not to do this, but what he did.
If you ask that question, almost certainly is.
But what he did for many years. Hey, look, Mr. Goo, just to remind me to talk about Mr. Goo.
Okay.
This guy was Chinese. He had a couple of other Chinese comrades. Now, it doesn't necessitate that it's because he's Chinese, but I have enough Chinese friends who understand this is how business works in China. And he basically ran a Ponzi scheme where, and I don't know the full details, but essentially he would set up companies and get investors to provide money for those companies, right? Then he would get more companies set up, even more companies to get more investors. And with that extra money that the investors gave him, he would pay the first investors.
Yeah.
So it kind of felt like it was working well.
Yeah, so straight Ponzi.
So rolling that through. And what he was doing was pulling money out and buying Lamborghinis and all this sort of stuff, right? Now, it all sort of came to a head a couple of months ago where people were like, oh, hold on a moment.
Now, is this in China he's doing this?
No, here in Australia.
Okay.
So he was Sydney, Melbourne, something like that. Now, he has escaped to the US, but he also bought himself, I think it was like Vanuatu passports a couple of months ago now. And I think he's left in his wake over $100 million of just like investor money, just completely gone. All these people are like, what do we do? And he's just run away. It made me think, now we're not we are now a business, right? We're now a partnership.
True.
But it just makes me think, man, there's so much danger out there when you're talking, like when it comes to money, the things people will do for money is just dastardly. Like, man, imagine just completely being like, oh, I want to be driving this Lamborghini. I'm just going to like wreck someone's finances to do this and just sell them on this thing. Why I sort of mentioned that, one, it was interesting and I was like, man, and this happens like enough times that it's not just like a rare occurrence. So it's huge amounts of money, but it happens all the time, just at a lower scale. But it made me think about what we were talking about, where it comes, okay, are we going to monetize this podcast? Are we going to do things? Are we going to give people the ability to buy like an affiliate link? Are we going to try and sell you some stuff? Some shirts, stickers, that we've been getting sent to ourselves.
Yes, indeed.
And, I kind of like, what do you go? Thought on that statement when we were talking about, do we go and do that? And after thinking about it, I'm like, no, it's not about money. Still not about that. It's just growth, value, being happy to do it. And it made me think, and if I still want to do it after all that without any monetary thing, you can truly be like, yeah, it's a good reason to be doing it. Yeah, and also 100%. doesn't drop us into the being Mr. Goo. Yeah. So don't be a Mr. Goo also if you listen to this.
And that's not just for podcasting either. You can apply that to anything. Say someone wants to be a famous actor. Well, you have to ask yourself, do you actually want to be a famous actor or do you want to be an actor? And I was listening actually to Joe Rogan speaking with Rob Lowe last night. And it's funny because I know the dude. I know the name, but I didn't put two and two together as being like, oh, that's Rob Lowe. And he's, very famous dude. Like he's been famous since the 70s or something. Do you know who he is?
Rob Lowe.
Interest?
Not over the name, no.
If you saw a photo of him,
I know. Yep.
And just while talking, you could, I reckon you could tell like, yes, he is famous and there's certain benefits from that as well. But he was also actually talking about how he had fame back before the internet and fame now. And he was saying it was way better before the internet because you could actually like get away with things. You could do bad stuff if you were famous. And he had like a sort of Coke and drugs and alcohol binge back in those days. And he's clean now and he's just like, if you do any bad stuff now, people are going to be on
People
top.
know.
You get called out for behaving badly nowadays if you're famous. But sort of sidetracking to the point of if you're doing something, you got to be aware of what you're doing it for. And if you're going out to earn money, that's great. And you should probably make that a huge priority, but just don't get it mixed up with other stuff as well.
Yeah, no, definitely.
All right, now getting on to, I'm going to do something, maybe introduce this a little bit more, but give a little bit of sneak peek for what's coming up in the themed episode. Give some hints.
Okay.
So this is a theoretical question that I wanted to ask you anyway, and it just revolves around the bonus, the sneak peek, what's coming up on Sunday.
Yep.
So what would, I guess, freak you out more if there, in 10 years, there was an asteroid that you knew was going to hit Earth? So basically, it came right close to us, skimmed the top of my head. That's what made me bald. And then it was going like 10% faster than Earth and following the same trajectory around. So like every year it's 10% closer to coming around and smashing into us from behind. Would that freak you out more, or knowing that like a black hole suddenly pops out of nowhere and then in 40 years time we would be at the limit where it's impossible to escape from being sucked into the black hole, the event horizon? Which one of those would freak you out more, and which do you think humanity would have a better chance of escaping? So
I think we'd escape the meteor, the first option.
Yeah.
Because we could probably do something about it. Who knows? They probably already have lasers and stuff that, if a thing's going to get close,
I hope so.
they're going to shoot it down and like blow it up. Because with the black hole, I think that would just freak me more out because, well, it's a little bit unknown. You said 40 years.
Yeah.
You can kind of just live your life and then it'll happen. With the meteor always being there around, you kind of, I guess it's like a known thing as opposed to the unknown. So you're going to be like, terrible. But you can't do anything about the black hole.
Yeah.
It's just like, we're all going to die. Not even if you go to Mars, like it's just going to get all
exactly
rocked up anyway. So that's totally fine. That's good. It's a good little incentive for people to watch the weekend's episode.
Exactly.
The other one I was going to say though, okay, so here's a different one. So with black holes, you can create a black hole like anywhere. Sure, people imagine it as just the huge things that exist in space.
Yeah.
And that's totally true. That's how black holes are generated generally, of supernovas, which is humongous stars blowing up, right? Red giants and whatnot. You can have it in other ways. However, you can actually artificially create black holes anywhere, as long as you put enough mass into a particular location.
Okay, I was going to say, every time I sneeze, am I creating black holes?
Well, every time I'm lifting weights, there's too much like weight generated close to my body. So it's like when I bench, my chest creates a black hole.
So I must be creating like white holes every time I bench or something.
From the lack of weight that you're moving. Exactly.
The sparsity of weight.
It's the void of weight that you're creating. But would you be... So I've read a little bit into this, but not too much, that people have attempted to create, like scientifically, a black hole in the room just to see what happens. And one of the things that they were, afraid of through the Hadron Collider, could that create a black hole because you're smashing things at such high speeds and generate so much energy that you could potentially accidentally create a black hole. Yeah. Does that scare you that there's possibilities that we're doing that? Would you be like, if you were talking to someone, they're like, oh yeah, we could potentially do that. Would your first thought be, oh, cool, let's continue? Or no, stop this completely at once?
Yeah, I mean, that one's a good one, I suppose, because if they create a black hole, we're all going to be dead instantly. There's no trying to escape that sort of thing, So, it's a little bit different from, say, nuclear winter or whatever, where there's a good chance you're going to survive, but then it's just going to be absolute hell and misery for the next 30, 20, however long years you've got left of your life.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be super happy. I'm like slightly less scared of that. But I just don't know enough about the like the physics behind it and stuff. So, for example, you can compare it to when they were testing nuclear bombs for the first time, and they weren't actually sure if the atmosphere would catch on fire or not, because it could cause a chain reaction in the atmosphere and then essentially blow up our atmosphere, and then we're all screwed.
But still, they were like, "Oh, let's just try to see."
Yeah, I think it's sort of the similar thing. There's smart people somewhere who did some calculations. There was maybe a little bit of risk, but
they're like, "They'll do it anyway."
They'll do it anyway. Someone's going to do it anyway. Okay. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you another question, and it's something I'm going to have to pull up just to make sure I don't get it wrong.
Yeah.
Have you heard of darkness to daylight? The event itself?
No.
Okay. I'll just explain it to people just in case they're not aware of it. So it's part of, I think it's the Australian CEO Challenge, but it's part of something else. Essentially, yearly, it's an event that happens, and it's across Australia. It's to do with domestic and family violence. So it's generally, the ultimate of it is you do 110 kilometer run, either in a team or on your own, over like 2 nights. And it's symbolizing on average each year Australia lives lost to domestic and family violence. I think it's 110 per day or something like that. Some sort of, that's the reason the 110 comes into it.
Yeah.
Now it's held in October. This year it's being done virtually. And I was kind of thinking, I know we talked a little bit about this probably back when we were talking annual goals and that, and like, we'd want to do a marathon or something. I was having a talk with someone just before and I'm like, maybe I want to try and do the 110K. So I was thinking, do I space it out? And here's my question to you. How would you do it over a month to get 110 kilometers? Could be walking, could be running. They allow biking, but I'm like, I just do it running. I almost thought, do I challenge myself and to actually try to do 110 kilometers?
Yeah, I think I'd try that.
Smack bang off it.
Yeah.
Now it's virtual. So one thing I was like, do you reckon you'd want to do that? And we could be like under mere mortals attempting 110 kilometers. I don't know how we'd end up doing it, but we could figure it out some way. And then I go out to the community at large and be like, look, if you want to support a good cause, you can obviously sponsor us or donate to us for that sort of cause.
Yeah.
But I was talking to someone that's like, would you do, I think it averages out at 3.6 kilometers per day.
No, when you say virtually, you mean, what do you mean by that? Like running on a treadmill?
So generally this particular event is like held at South Bank and you run around this loop until you do 110 Ks.
Okay, yeah.
But it's virtually, so like from the 1st of October till the 30th of October, see if you can complete 110 kilometers in whatever way.
Yeah,
but in my mind, I'm like, could I still do that over 2 days? Like on a Saturday, Sunday, like start on a Saturday morning, finish on Sunday afternoon with some sort of break in between.
Yeah, I mean, that does sound appealing to me, just the challenge aspect of it. But I feel that might be one I should probably train for. I think that's a good one to just do off the bat. Okay, so I wanted to put that idea out there. But the second one is challenges and just knowing like the limit on things when you're like, okay, this seems like a challenge, but I got the upper level of what I can take and what sounds like it's like totally beyond, what you could take. So say that 110 kilometers, I'm thinking, 2 days. I think today took me, and I didn't run, I was just walking. I took about 2.5 hours to do about 12 Ks. So I'm like, okay, so I sort of scale that out. I could probably do the 40 something odd K, 50 Ks in about 8 hours, right? Or 10 hours. So to get that 110 Ks in 2 days, I'd have to be doing probably a little bit of jogging and probably a lot of walking. It'd take me about 22 hours, 24 hours over 2 days. And while that sounds like, it's totally doable with a lot of time, my feet are already hurting right now. And I'm like, man, that would really stretch. You're going uphill and stuff then as well, so...
Yeah, but I think it just makes me think, how could you figure out what's a challenge that you foreseeably can be like, okay, I could take this on, even though it's tough. I think it's within my scope, even if it's top level scope. And where do you go, okay, this is like just silly. I'm not going to do it purely because it's not going to happen. Like it's almost like negative for me to take this on. Like if I said to you 110 kilometers over 2 days, but then I stepped it up and said 200 kilometers in 2 days, are you going to be like, okay, well, that's just done?
Yeah. It gets to a point, I guess, and that's for other stuff as well. So it's like a handstand push-up, for example. Most people, no matter how bad they want it, they're not going to be able to get it without 2 years,
intense
3
training.
years of training and consistent hard training at that.
Yeah.
So it's got to be something. Yeah, I guess something that's feasible. I think like the endurance ones are a bit different to explosive. If you told me to do 160, 180 kg squat, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not ready for that. So it's got to be something I think like the endurance ones are a bit different because those are a bit more, I feel, mental than they are purely physical, for example. So yeah. And then what limit? I don't know. I'd have to, just use like a 1 hour baseline. How far can I run in 1 hour? And then sort of extrapolate that out and then be like, okay, I can maybe, obviously I'm going to lose time as it goes longer. So I'm just going to be, not going to be fresh every hour at the start.
Yeah, I think it makes me, because so optimize, it's like two limitations if I just very basic limitations. There's like going to be your like physical limitation and then your mental limitation. And I think you reach mental limitation before physical if you allow it to.
Yeah.
Like your mind will give up long before physically you would. So I'm taking it like more often than not, like I'll train and I'll be doing 10 sets of 10 squat. And probably physically I can do it at that tempo and that rate. But mentally I might get to the 7th set and be like, oh man, I'm wrecked now. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm stopping or whatever. Similarly with running, I'm sure you could just run. Like the other day when I was trying to get 10Ks and I was running fairly fast. Yeah, I did 6Ks and I was like, nah, like that's it. I can't get any more. I'm running out of time. I probably could have continued if I just pushed myself mentally to do it and been late probably, but still being able to do it. But it's a double limitation of mental limitation and physical limitation. And I think more often than not, a lot of people, so again, all the way back to the example of 110 kilometers, I think if you step it up to 200 kilometers in 2 days, I think my limitation just first hits it mentally and I'll be like, well, that's too long. No, I'm not going to do it. But I haven't actually properly considered physically, okay, what does that mean? Like if I broke it down all the way to like 48 hours and if you did, 4 kilometers per hour and you totally didn't sleep or something, actually physically you could probably do that. People have done that, like out there. They've done things like that, right? So you can actually physically do it if you want to, if you really want to push it. And I think we just don't do enough of that. We don't often just go like, okay, what's our true maximum possible limitation? Not mentally, but like physically limitation. Not saying we should all the time, but there's instances where you can be like, no, I can keep pushing much harder than this.
Yeah. I think you need to have a bit of experience in the actual thing you're doing as well. So we're talking about running right now. I don't run that much. I do 1K, 2Ks every week. Yep. That's it. So I don't really know the difference between 150 and 200Ks or 100Ks or even 50Ks. Like I just don't know the difference. So I'd sort of like I'm looking to avoid. There's just ignorance there. I can't say, what is the limitation because I haven't even tried to push close to it.
Yeah. Actually, a little example of
but
this.
if you're going to change it to what like 1K limitation, then I know because I've been training that for the last year.
So very
so
precisely
I know,
on it.
Like I've done 3:15, and I know if I train probably hard enough, 3K like 3-minute K would be really really fast for me. That's a proper challenge. So that one I know because I have that past experience and backing up with it. But that sort of stuff is like...
Yeah. I think abstracting it more, one of the things I feel even I don't do this enough and it'd be awesome to keep on doing is like your mental limitation and your physical limitation, they sit at whatever distance apart. The more you can push your mental limitation to go closer towards that physical limitation, when it's safe, obviously tempering it what you're doing, it's just growth. It's a positive thing. In the recent book I was reading from Haruki Murakami, what I talk about when I talk about running. He was talking about how he runs a marathon every year pretty much. And that's not like a great marathon runner, but he's a good rider. But he was trying to explain how he ran this, not ultra marathon, but it was like a 68 kilometer run in Japan. And he knows what a marathon is. And they physically drew a line in that particular race of when you go past the marathon distance and when you keep going. And he was like, as soon as like body and mind went over that line, it felt completely different to him. And all of a sudden it felt like he'd just gone over like this another realm of his body and things started happening differently and his mind was a little bit different. So it makes me think of like in that example, if you always just run a marathon, then you've got like your physical limitation might be more, but your mental limitations like in one level, you might vary the speed. But if you just had to go and do 60 kilometers, you might push that mental limitation of what you think you can do just slightly close to your physical limitation. And that can go with like everything. So if you believe you can only read a book a month and it's because of the way you prioritize or anything else or the way you absorb it, and you never really push for that, then, you never really, like your physical limit might be like incredible numbers beyond that. Yeah. And I think it just doesn't do harm to push your mental limitation a little bit. Not all the time, but every now and again.
Yeah. That is interesting because with that line, if they'd put it a kilometer further or a kilometer back, he still would have had the same thing because it really isn't about the body. So say he didn't have like a watch on or whatnot. Yeah. I noticed the same thing actually yesterday when I was running and I basically run around an AFL field. So that's roughly 500 meters in circumference. So 250 meters is sort of from one goalpost to the other. And I noticed like from my first 250 meters, I hit a point where my like phone says basically, yeah, you've hit 250 meters, and my pace just slacks off immediately after that.
Yeah.
And it's because, you know, from past experience, it's always been like I hit 250, and then that's when I just notice like I start to lag a little bit.
You mentally think that's when you do it, so you actually start doing it.
But say if I started running on a track or something, just one long thing, and I had the same phone again, and it, instead of doing it at 250, it did it at 350, but told me it was 250. I would still probably do the same thing. Like that's when I'd slack off the pace.
Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting. Well, yeah, and that goes to show, like, you know, how much mental limitation has you know, on top of your physical limitation.
Yeah, and so then you can do different things. So instead of me running around the same circuit, maybe I can switch the phone off to, you know, only give me pace reports every 500 meters, and I run on a track somewhere so that I don't have a visual
cue of like what the okay. Well, it reminds me of one of the things that Jocko talks about, and I've heard other people talk about that they do in the I don't know if it's particular to the SEALs Buds training course, or they do it in other army, but in essence it's like it'll be 2 weeks into it and all of them are like wrecked, and they'll come and tell all of the people training for it, they'll go, oh, sorry guys, we've just been told we've actually been pushing you guys a little bit too hard, that's on us, our apologies. Like it'll be like 11 p.m. and they'll be like, look, just stop doing what you're doing now, go have a bit of a rest, we'll kick it off in the morning, we've actually been training you too hard.
Yeah.
And then at 2 a.m, they'll just wake all of them up. They'll get the bell and be like, get up, go back into it, right?
Yeah.
So, and they do that to try to like see really mentally who's going to be like, oh, that's it. Like I was already kind of feeling a little bit like loose and it's finished. And then all of a sudden you pick it up. Same thing with, you know, they'll do a 5 kilometer run and they'll be like, okay, you got to push really hard 5 kilometers. And then when they get to like 4.5 kilometers, they'll be like, actually, you got to do an extra kilometer. And then they'll get them to the 6 kilometers and they'll be like, okay, cool. Now you have to make it all the way back to 6 kilometers. And people at that point are just like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, it's fine. And what they'll do is like, when they do the 7th kilometer back, they'll stop them and then they'll actually just pick them up and go home. But people will just go, nah, that's it. Mentally, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Then you could, like, there's people obviously that go and do it and other ones who are successful. So, yeah, that's obviously just a particular area. But again, pushing your mental limitation, not always, but sometimes it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I can't even think of a negative way of that, unless it's like mental limitation of killing people. Then don't pursue that. Again, actually, I always bring this up, but you know, we are meandering. Go check out the Gulag quotes. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
There's a bit of effort went into that as well.
Exactly.
I saw how much more effort did it take to create that podcast as opposed to your normal ones.
Probably like 4x.
Oh,
5x.
dang. Okay. Yeah. Which is not like, that's between maybe
insane.
10 minutes to 40 minutes.
More than that. It'd be like 5 hours compared to an hour and a quarter.
Okay. All right. Go check it out because there was a lot of effort put into that one. So you'll be seeing that in highlights and a few other places.
Exactly.
Cool. Anything else you want to meander in?
Nah, let's leave it there for today. I got a whole bunch of stuff, but we'll leave it for the next one.
We've got plenty of stuff to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to stress this highly of you. First of all, 1, don't be Mr. Goo. 2, if you want to stay righteous, learn, meander, or just listening to 2 mere mortals. Where can they find us, Kyrin?
Where can't they find us? Where can't they find us? We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on podcast platforms in general. Facebook, Twitter, TikTok still.
TikTok still.
Very good.
People are sending us stickers, shirts. Mm-hmm. We're getting commented. We're having interactions with a lot of people. Obviously, predominantly here in Australia, with a couple of international people. Really enjoyed talking to Jody over in the UK.
Yep.
Zach, go and check out Zach's interview if you haven't already with
another
Zach
podcast
Nadler.
Coming out this
Erica?
Saturday with Erica.
Yeah, plenty of stuff coming along. Ladies and gentlemen, tune in for more. It's coming along. If you haven't subscribed already,
Do it.
do it. Juan out.
Kyrin out.